Our goal is not just an environment of clean air and water and scenic beauty while forgetting about the worst environments in America. Our goal is an environment of decency, quality, and mutual respect for all human beings and all other living creatures. Our goal is a decent environment in its broadest and deepest sense, and it will require a long, sustained political, moral, ethical, and financial commitment far beyond any commitment ever made by any society in the history of man.
My name is Tia Nelson. I am the daughter of Gaylord Nelson, the founder of Earth Day. My father was an extraordinary dad. He was an extraordinary leader. Growing up as his daughter, it was mostly a great privilege, but also I felt a heavy sense of duty to public service and to making a difference with my life. I work for the Outrider Foundation. Our goal is to educate people about big global challenges like climate change. One of my favorite quotes from my father was delivered on the eve of the first Earth Day in 1970. He said, ecology is a big science,
not a narrow one. It's a big concept. And it is concerned with all the ramifications of all the relationships of all living creatures to each other and their environment.
So when he talked about the environment, he talked about ecology and environment in the broadest sense, in the most inclusive sense. That idea resonated with students across the country. Collectively, they made a difference that was unforeseeable.
This movement and this fight is about all of us, because what is more fundamental than the air that we breathe, than water, than the soil that we stand on, than the land that we love? Like, what is more fundamental to every single one of us than that? My name is Varshini Prakash. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, and I am one of the co-founders of Sunrise Movement. We are building a movement of young people all across this nation to stop the climate crisis and create millions of good jobs for our generation in the process. And when I began looking back into what the first Earth Day was like, what it meant, the level of people who got involved, the kind of political action, I think for me, Earth Day now is about getting back to our roots.
My father was brilliant at working across the aisle to build consensus. He knew when to compromise, he knew when to stick to his principles. Think of all of the important environmental laws that were passed after that first Earth Day, and they were passed with significant support from both parties.
For 6 years, I said that climate change was nonsense, in as much as I represented Greenville-Spartanburg, South Carolina, probably one of the reddest districts in the reddest state of the nation. That was the end of the inquiry for me. So I admit that's fairly ignorant, but that's the way it was for 6 years. So I'm Bob Inglis, and I run an outfit called republicen.org, where convincing conservatives that they're really good on climate and that they've got the answer. It's free enterprise innovation. My son, the eldest of our 5 kids, came to me. He was voting for the first time because he just turned 18. And he said to me, "Dad, I'll vote for you, but you're going to clean up your act on the environment." It's the first of a 3-step metamorphosis for me. And step 2 was going to Antarctica with a science committee, seeing the evidence in the ice core drillings. Step 3 was another science committee trip. It's there that at a stopover at the Great Barrier Reef, great blessing there was meeting an Australian climate scientist named Scott Heron, and just being inspired by his faith to act on climate change.
When Bob spoke about climate change while serving in the United States Congress, he was primaried and he lost his election. He was attacked for speaking the words climate change. This was a transformative moment in his life and led to him dedicating his whole career today to addressing the climate change challenge.
For young people growing up in this country, we have been defined by the climate crisis. People who have been born after the year 2000 have never lived a year on this planet that wasn't one of the hottest years on record. We are the climate generation. And so now, at a young age, we have realized that if our politicians aren't going to do something about this problem, then we have to take matters into our own hands.
Through leadership of people like Varshini, the youth movement has been energized in the last year in ways that resemble what was happening almost 50 years ago when the first Earth Day occurred.
There comes a place where activism drives even the crustiest old-timer to decide to get involved.
I don't think there's any other issue viewed in its broadest sense, which is as critical to mankind as the issue of the quality of the environment in which we live.
Environmentalism is not a partisan issue. Environmentalism is a quality of life issue for all of us.
You know, I'm very optimistic about the future. I think we're going to solve climate change. It's going to be that conservatives come together with progressives to figure out we're literally in this together.
This is about not just changing light bulbs, this is about changing our politics. And if anything, we will be successful because we do it together.
I want the youth of today to know that I have done everything that I can to ensure on the 100th anniversary of Earth Day, we are celebrating a brighter future. We're at a critical moment in history. We have an opportunity to address the greatest environmental challenge of our time.
Are we able? Yes. Are we willing? That's the unanswered question.
Hi, everyone. I belong to all our viewers from all around the world. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on your time zone. Welcome to the 17th virtual webinar hosted by the American Sri Lankan Photographic Arts Society, Los Angeles, California, USA, ASPS, member of Photographic Society of America, PSA, and the International Federation of Photography of Art in France, FIAP. The objective of this series is to showcase the beauty of our planet's fauna and flora and promote environmental conversation in the context of nature photography and tourism, with a special focus on Sri Lanka's natural habitat. I'm your host, Medini Ratnayake. We are streaming live from Los Angeles, California, USA. This year marks the 51st anniversary of the birth of the environmental movement in 1970, which was initiated by Senator Gaylord Nelson, as you just witnessed in the video. It gave voice to an emerging public consciousness about the state of our planet. Our planet is an amazing place, but it needs our help to thrive. That is why Earth Day engages more than 1 billion people every year. Over the decades, it has brought hundreds of millions of people into the environmental movement, creating opportunities for civic engagement in 193 countries. It has become a significant stepping stone along the pathway of engagement around protecting the planet from pollution and deforestation and the like. Today's webinar is designed to commemorate the Earth Day 2021 by supporting the worldwide efforts to conserve and revitalize the environment of the blue planet that is our home. We are delighted that this webinar has been incorporated into the day-long virtual celebrations streaming around the world conducted by the Earth Day organization, featuring Pope Francis, President Joe Biden, and several musical legends. These webinars are also intended to offer a platform to discuss ways of maintaining a more balanced relationship with ecosystems and the tools that can help us to reach this objective, so that future generations can continue to enjoy and benefit from them sustainably and responsibly. If we are to succeed, we must obviously listen to the representatives of the next generation. we have brought together 10 ambassadors of the next generation who will link hands from around the world during this webinar and voice their concerns and ideas to preserve a pristine environment for the future. We have joining us today Temi Pereira, Dilana Wickramasinghe from USA, Farah Shami, Nihara Dumbukola from UK, Mihiri Kanasis, Akash Pereira from Canada, Akira Alagiawana, Kalendra Ranwala, Teruni Abesinghe, and Alosha Samararachi from Sri Lanka. Let us listen to them. We will begin with Temi Pereira from United States, who will make a presentation on air pollution. She's 16 years old environmentalist and activist. Temi is a local leader for the Sunrise Movement and has appeared on the news for organizing several climate strikes. 2 years ago, she founded a national workshop that hosts events and publishes a newsletter to teach kids to become activists. Temi is a passionate believer that anyone can incorporate sustainability into their work and encourages everyone to become an activist for the environment. Temi, we want to welcome you to this forum. So the stage is yours. Take it away.
Thank you all for attending today's webinar. By hearing from us, the youth, we can all work together towards solving the climate crisis. No matter where you're joining us from today, I'm sure you've experienced air pollution. Maybe you feel a burning in your lungs some days, or you know people who have asthma, or even something as subtle as the air in the mountains feeling cleaner than in the city. Whatever the case, air pollution is around us every day due to human activities that churn out these harmful gases, toxins, and particulates. In addition to affecting our health, greenhouse gases contribute to the warming of the Earth's atmosphere and the worsening of the climate crisis. Understanding air pollution and its effects is vital to protecting our health and the health of our planet. First, what is air pollution? Air pollution is made up of toxins, smog, and greenhouse gases, which are released through waste disposal, hazardous chemicals, and the burning of fossil fuels. Toxins are chemicals such as mercury and lead, which are released during the burning of waste or fossil fuels. These chemicals can poison our bodies, causing extreme sickness like respiratory illness, cancer, and birth defects. Smog is formed from sulfur and nitrous oxides, which react with sunlight to form a brown haze in the air. Smog can cause respiratory irritation, environmental damage, and acid rain. Greenhouse gases, which include carbon dioxide and methane, are released primarily during the burning of fossil fuels, causing global warming through the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect happens when greenhouse gases form a layer in the atmosphere. When sunlight passes through the atmosphere, bounces off the Earth, and is reflected out to space, greenhouse gases trap some of that sunlight, making the atmosphere warmer. Because of the greenhouse gases that humans are putting into the atmosphere, the Earth is warming alarmingly fast. As the Earth gets hotter, environmental catastrophes are set off. Ice caps melt, sea levels rise, storms get more severe, and droughts get more frequent. Even worse, the climate crisis is a self-perpetuating cycle, because as ice caps melt, they release trapped methane, and the melted seawater absorbs the heat that ice would reflect. The bottom line is, climate change requires immediate action before it gets any worse. What will it take to solve the climate crisis? We need a global effort of aggressive policy change to curb our emissions. Bringing down our emissions as much as we need to will be hard work, and all of us need to pitch in to fight for legislation that we need. Many of you may have heard of policies like the Green New Deal in the US, or you may know of local legislation that mandates curbing emissions. Educate yourself on these legal solutions and persuade your representatives to support them. You can get involved in large political movements that work towards political solutions to the climate crisis, like the Sunrise Movement, especially for youth, who are leaders at the forefront of these movements. You can participate in advocacy on your own by going to climate strikes or by starting your own endeavors. Whatever you choose to do, make your voice heard, because we need you. The planet needs you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Penny, for that excellent presentation on air pollution. Now we are moving to plastic pollution. So Mihiri Kamis from Canada is our next presenter. Mihiri is going to make a presentation on plastic pollution. She's 17 and is in grade 11 at St. Joseph's High School in Edmonton, Canada. She's a black belt in Taekwondo. Her interests are in digital art, entrepreneurship, computer programming, and gaming. Mihiri, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mihiri, and I'm excited to be presenting information on the topic of plastic pollution. This is just one of the many environmental issues presented in this program to educate today's youth in hopes of a brighter future. Every year, 275 million tons of plastic is thrown out by the world. That much plastic is equivalent to approximately 183,000 blue whales, the largest animals on Earth. Environmental issues are not just hurting a future we have not seen yet, but its impacts can already be perceived in changes happening to our current climate, such as rising sea levels, species extinction, novel diseases, climate refugees, and famine. Today, I will be speaking on the topic of plastic pollution and what we as children can do to contribute to the solution. First of all, what is plastic? We know that plastic is used to create plastic bags, bottles, and other disposable items. But did you know it is used in a majority of the products we purchase and use? Plastic is made out of synthetic polymers from crude oil, which is cheap to obtain. Machinery used to mass-produce plastic is also quite cheap once a mold is created. Polymers are lightweight, durable, and can be molded into any shape that the manufacturer desires. Overall, plastic is a very affordable and useful material for anyone looking to create products and packaging material. Many materials are made out of plastic, including nylon. Which is used to create articles of clothing and other fabrics. It's easy to not notice how much plastic we really use when we're unaware it's in most of our furniture, toys, devices, tools, and even our clothing. Not only does producing so many products with plastic contribute to climate change, but once the plastic is left to go nowhere safely, it continues to release harmful carbon emissions. Plastic deteriorates throughout the years and releases a large number of greenhouse gases. Since they don't biodegrade very quickly, they're left to release these toxins for extremely long periods in large masses. Incinerating plastic also produces a grand amount of carbon emissions. Plastic is made to be durable, even for products that are meant to be used once and just thrown away. Plastic can take several hundred years to break down. Only a small amount of plastic is actually recycled. 9 to 12% per year is recycled, and 10 to 12% is incinerated. The remaining amount remains in landfills, the ocean, or roaming around the corners of our planet. Even plastic that is recycled can only be recycled or reused for so long. Plastic deteriorates and cannot be recycled properly after one or more uses. Another huge threat comes from plastic particles no bigger than 5 millimeters that have spread across the Earth. Microplastics can be found everywhere and continues to threaten the health of not only plants and animals, but may be detrimental to human health as it is to the rest of the environment. Most microplastics form in the sea when plastic is exposed to UV rays and crumble. About 51 trillion microplastic particles exist in the sea. Marine life eat the microplastics, causing them to move up the food chain and onto our own plates. Microplastics can also easily be spread around the environment through wind and precipitation. Even though it may have formed in the sea, it now exists in places like household dust and our water supply. Although it will take a global effort to reduce the amount of plastic we produce and come up with a way to properly dispose of it, there are things that we as youth can do to start making a change. Small things add up if we can work together. For starters, we can use disposable plastic items as infrequently as possible. Instead, use reusable items such as metal straws, Tupperware for storage, and reusable water bottles. Reuse plastic items where you can, like restaurant takeout containers, and rather than throwing away unwanted belongings, donate them to charities or thrift stores in order to stop unneeded plastic wastage. You can buy products made out of recycled materials when they're available. And finally, and most importantly, urge family members and friends to cut down on plastic usage and promote reusing and recycling plastic materials. Thank you for your attention. I hope you can take away something from this presentation and work to help us create a better future for our environment.
Thank you so much, Mihiri, for that excellent presentation on plastic pollution. We learned a lot today, so thank you again. So moving on to our next speaker, which is going to be Akira Alagiawana from Sri Lanka. Akira is going to make a presentation on ocean and marine life. Akira is 12 years old and has a vast range of interests, from building 3D models on Mecha bricks to programming on Scratch MIT. Akira is a tech geek, but also the ideal nature lover who is passionate about every nook and corner the natural world has to offer to us. Following up his undying interest on prehistoric life, Akira published his very own children's story on dinosaurs at the age of 9. His amazing writing skills cannot be disputed given his intense reading throughout the year. Watching science programs like How the Universe Works, Akira spends his free time enhancing his knowledge of the world. So, Akira, we are very excited to have you with us today from Sri Lanka. So, the panel is now open to you to start your presentation. So, go ahead.
Thank you for that introduction. Hello everyone from around the world. I'm Akira Alagiawana from Sri Lanka, and I'm very happy to take part in this Voices of Young webinar organized by the America-Sri Lanka Photographic Society to mark this year's Earth Day. Today I will be talking about my favorite topic, oceans and marine life. So I hope you all can hear me, and now I'll share my screen. The ocean is a vast habitat. It inhabits up to 95% of life and has unimaginable depths. The ocean covers 2/3 of the planet and still is the most unexplored area of the Earth. It has animals that are either terrifying or of great beauty. But now, because of new technology, we can finally discover what lies in the ocean's unknown depths. Since most of you might already know about the ocean, I will bring to you some of the least known but most important facts about our planet's waters. Today, I will take you through the zones and species that are found in the ocean. But before that, let me ask you a question. When was the last time you thought about your breathing? You might already know that oxygen comes from photosynthetic organisms like plants. But did you know that most of the oxygen you breathe comes from the organisms in the ocean? More than half of the oxygen you breathe comes from marine photosynthesizers like phytoplankton and seaweed. Now, let's take a look at what plankton is. One of the most common organisms throughout the seas is plankton. Plankton are microscopic organisms that perform photosynthesis. They have a huge role in marine life and produce most of the oxygen on Earth. Phytoplankton absorb energy from the sun and nutrients from the water to produce their own nourishment or energy. In the process of photosynthesis, phytoplankton release molecular oxygen into the water as a waste byproduct. There are two main types of plankton: phytoplankton, which are plants, and zooplankton, which are animals. Zooplankton are microscopic marine creatures that eat phytoplankton and become food for fish, crustaceans, and other larger species. Now, let's take a short look at this short video on plankton.
Phytoplankton and zooplankton. Zooplankton is derived from the Greek words that mean animal drifter. Almost all zooplankton are microscopic, but some are larger, such as jellyfish. Let's take a look at some zooplankton. Zooplankton are important because they play a role in the aquatic food webs, and they are a resource for other consumers such as fish and even some whales. In fact, the Antarctic krill, which is a type of zooplankton, is among the species with the largest biomass in the world. Zooplankton eat floating bacteria, phytoplankton, and even other zooplankton. Phytoplankton means plant drifter. Phytoplankton are photosynthesizing microscopic organisms found in the upper sunny layer of all oceans and several bodies of fresh water on Earth. Phytoplankton are sometimes called the grasses of the sea, and like land plants, they produce lots of oxygen through photosynthesis. Let's take a look at some phytoplankton. Most phytoplankton are microscopic, and again, they get their food by using photosynthesis. They are very important because they provide food for the ecosystem and also very important oxygen. They are the first link in the food chain where they live. So there we go, two types of plankton: zooplankton and phytoplankton.
Now back to our presentation. So here are a few satellite images of phytoplankton. As you can see, they are found in the North Atlantic Ocean too. Another species of oxygen-producing plant is algae. Algae can range from microalgae to large seaweed like giant krill. The ocean produces 50 to 80% of the Earth's oxygen. Most of it is produced by plants like drifting plants, which is a group of seaweed. The bacteria Pleurococcus produces up to 20% of oxygen in the biosphere alone, which is a higher percentage than all tropical rainforests on land combined. Now we move into the depths and zones of the ocean. In order to better study and understand this huge ecosystem, Scientists have divided it into 5 zones. They are the sunlight zone, the twilight zone, the midnight zone, the abyss, and the hadal zone. The sunlight zone is where the sun is present throughout. Its depth is 200 meters. The sunlight zone consists of coral and common but beautiful fish, plankton, and all types of photosynthetic plants. Coral are living organisms made of sponge, and they feed off microorganisms and plankton. Some coral even eat each other. Coral are home to many animals, like the infamous clownfish, moray eels, shrimp, crab, and many others. The coral also inhabit types of bacteria in their bodies. These bacteria produce oxygen by photosynthesis. They also make the coral glow at night since they contain bioluminescence, a substance that produces light. Here we have a picture of coral in the sunlight zone. Next, at 1000 meters, we have the twilight zone. This zone gets very little sunlight, hence the name twilight zone. The creatures that live there are adapted to survive in the almost pitch black environment. Next, at 4000 meters, we have the midnight zone. The midnight zone gets no sunlight at all, so animals that live there use instincts and lures, like bioluminescence, to capture their prey. It is also where sperm whales visit to catch giant squid. Most of the animals in the midnight zone use lures or keen senses to catch their food. Fish like the anglerfish, dragonfish, and giant squid are the top predators in this zone. At 6000 meters, we have the abyss. This is the deep sea bed. Here, the only kinds of life found are sea worms, crustaceans, and shrimp. Whale carcasses come in large numbers. Underwater volcanoes are also found in this harsh environment, which cause the temperatures to rise constantly. Only the toughest can survive there. Finally, we have the hadal zone, known as the trenches. Here, it is too deep for anyone to explore and discover using technology. Shrimp, tube worms, sea cucumbers, and leopardifish are the only things to be sighted, but most of it is still a mystery. All ecosystems on land and in the ocean are very complex and are affected a lot due to pollution and short-sighted inventions by man, such as plastic. Plastic is everywhere. A lot of it ends up in the ocean. Most plastics are in the ocean and they break up into very small particles. These small plastic bits are called microplastics. Other plastics are intentionally designed to be small. They are called microbeads and are used in many health and beauty products. They pass unchanged through waterways into the ocean. Aquatic life and birds can mistake microplastics for food. Research is being conducted on this, but there's still much we don't know. In 2015, the US banned the use of microbeads, but microplastics are still a huge problem. Microplastics are less than 5 millimeters in size, but they can wipe out species as they are mistaken for food or unknowingly finds its way into an animal's body. Cleaning up bottles and plastic materials in the ocean will not make any change if microplastics are still found in the seas. But I hope that we will soon be able to find a solution for this and control this silent killer to ensure that we continue to benefit from our marine ecosystem services that we all enjoy. Now, let us take a look at how microplastics pollute our ocean. Even though humans have only explored 5% of the world's oceans, it is believed that we have impacted every part of the ocean with waste and chemical pollution. We humans haven't been treating our oceans that well. Rising sea levels, increase of plastic waste in the ocean, most coral reefs dried out, and increase in greenhouse gases are directly or indirectly due to human activities. The ocean is a key element for survival as it produces most of the oxygen on Earth. Bacteria, plankton, algae, drifting plants, and others produce much more oxygen than any plant on land. Therefore, when we harm the plants in the ocean, it also affects our oxygen supply. If all marine life that produces oxygen were to be wiped out, only the plants on land would be producing oxygen, which won't be enough for survival and would drive us into extinction, turning Earth into a lifeless wasteland. Thankfully, we have a tiny chance to change the planet back to its former glory. If we reduce the usage of plastic and decrease the greenhouse gases, the Earth will thrive once more. As I have mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, the ocean inhabits up to 95% of life on Earth. Therefore, we, the younger generation, have a huge role to protect the animals and turn Earth into a better place. Sorry if I have taken a few extra minutes, but I really wanted to share all these things with you on this special webinar to mark this year's Earth Day. I would also like to thank the America Sri Lanka Photographic Art Society for this opportunity to take part in this webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Akira. We are looking forward to hearing more about your engagements in Sri Lanka, about oceans and marine life in future. So good luck to you. So moving on to our next speaker, I have one from United States, Dilana Wickramasinghe. Dilana, welcome and good morning. We are still in the morning hours in US. Dilana will be making a presentation on global warming and climate change. She's 16 and a junior who currently attends Ponderosa High School in El Dorado Hills, California. She founded the UNICEF Club at her school. She's a black belt in karate. She does Bollywood dancing and troupe under Amit and Hiren at ICC. Dilana enjoys writing and has received the Soul Writing Award offered at her middle school. So Dilana, we are very excited to hear your presentation on global warming and climate change. Take it away.
Hello. Before I start off, can I ask, can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can see your presentation, Dilana.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today, I want to talk about global warming and climate change. Almost every aspect of life today in developed nations comes at the expense of our planet. We rely heavily on fossil fuel energy, plastics, and harmful production habits. Due to the reluctance of our governments and corporations to control these activities, we are already seeing major consequences, and if actions not taken soon, we are looking at a permanent deadly damage. The Arctic is melting at increasing rates. We are seeing devastating natural disasters such as the horrific wildfires in California and record heat waves. Biodiversity is on a heavy decline too, with 150 species going extinct every day. With so much damage already occurring from climate change alone, it is imperative that we take action soon. Many will claim that climate change is not real or argue that if it does exist, then the effects are minuscule and not a big deal. However, the damages caused by climate change are immense, with increased wildfires, endless droughts, and harmful health effects. For starters, what is climate change? Climate change, by definition, is a change in global or regional climate patterns. It is currently associated with global warming, which refers to the human-induced warming of the Earth. While global warming is entirely human-caused, climate change also refers to natural causes, for example, the Ice Age. The two terms are used quite interchangeably, and although global warming is the current climate change the Earth is going through right now, it is important to establish that there is a difference between the two. During the last 50 years, human activities, mostly the burning of fossil fuels, had released an abundant amount of greenhouse gases, mostly carbon dioxide. These gases trap additional heat in the lower atmosphere. Due to this, the world has been warmed by 0.85 degrees Celsius. During the last 30 years, each decade has been increasingly warmer than the preceding one. Due to this, ice glaciers are melting, precipitation patterns are being altered, and our sea levels are rising. Because of these occurrences and higher temperature levels, climate change is causing serious damage to life around us. Firstly, climate change can bring about drought. There are several ways that climate change contributes to drought. The warmer temperatures can amplify evaporation from the soil, which would make periods of low precipitation drier than usual. Drought can also alter atmospheric rivers, which are narrow streams of moisture transported in the atmosphere. Here's an example of one on the screen. A combination of that and warmer temperatures, as mentioned earlier, can affect snowpack and melt. This could largely damage our water supply. Droughts negatively affect us in several ways as well. Droughts affect our livestock and crops. For example, when a global drought hit in 2012, many breadbasket regions with rich soil that are known for agriculture, were affected, which led to a spike in food prices. This in turn leads to famine, great migration, and social unrest in countries and communities that are already facing great problems when it comes to food. Additionally, transportation would be greatly affected as well. Water levels on rivers of commerce like the Mississippi would be lowered. Transport barges require at least 9 feet of water, and at one point in 2013, the U.S. Army had to blast obstacles to be able to maintain that level. An additional main effect from drought that causes damage is the increase of wildfires. We have all may have heard of the California wildfires and how destructive they are, thanks to climate change and increase in temperatures. As discussed earlier, climate change can lead to drought, in which warm air and low amounts of precipitation formulates an environment where forests and other vegetation dry up easily. This is because hot air is like a sponge, always absorbing water when it's not at 100% humidity. This is why we constantly use hot air to dry things that get wet, like hair dryers for our hair and drying machines for clothes. With a combination of dry material that is easily flammable, the perfect weather conditions and environment, and our personal human mistakes, such as out of control campfires or gender reveal parties, we've got a recipe for a disastrous wildfire. Finally, climate change can negatively affect our health and well-being. To begin, extreme high air temperatures contribute directly to deaths from cardiovascular and respiratory disease. For example, in a heat wave during the summer of 2003 in Europe, more than 70,000 excess deaths were recorded, according to the National Library of Medicine. Additionally, climate change raises the levels of ozone that further contributes to those negative health conditions as well. Not to mention, pollen and other aeroallergen levels are higher in extreme heat, which can trigger asthma and allergies in many people. To add to it, because of the melting ice, sea levels are rising. This is not only bad for the species inhabiting ocean areas, but for us humans as well. 1/3 of the entire world's population lives within 100 kilometers of the ocean, according to NASA. The rise of ocean levels could force people to move, which can increase the risk of health effects as well, according to the World Health Organization. Rise in sea levels can cause floods and extreme precipitation as well. Floods can contaminate fresh water and can facilitate the spread of waterborne diseases and attract disease-carrying insects such as mosquitoes. All of this raises a question. So what do we do about it? What could we, as youth, do about these pressing matters in our environment? Should we advocate on social media? Due to the rise of social media users each day, this is a method a good portion of our generation resorts to. It's quick, easy, and requires little thought, like reposting Instagram stories or retweeting Twitter articles. A real dream, right? Truthfully, although this is effective in its own way, this is minuscule in comparison to the continued harmful effects of major corporations. Now, this is not to say that all action on social media is useless and that we should just give up. And I'm not here to preach about why social media is bad or harmful, even though it is, but that is not the topic today. But instead, we should direct our attention towards companies and lawmakers who have overall the control over reducing our overall emissions. We should try to take action against these companies themselves by advocating for better policies and putting pressure on our lawmakers to vote for policies that benefit the environment. Since big corporations have the option of using solar power or other alternative and less detrimental methods for their production processes, we can push to make laws that restrict those processes and reward cleaner alternatives. This, along with more conscious decisions, like using our energy wisely, not wasting our food, leaving less waste and garbage, and starting conversations about global warming in our local communities can help us try to save the world little by little. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Dilana, for that very informative presentation on global warming and climate change. I truly appreciate you taking the effort to touch on a topic which is a very important topic and has a huge emphasis this year in the United States. So thank you and good luck with your future endeavors. So moving on to my next speaker today, Medini Ratnayake from our beautiful island, Sri Lanka. Medini will make a presentation on loss of biodiversity. Medini attends Ananda College, Colombo, Sri Lanka, and is in grade 12 doing bioscience and is an assistant prefect. His interest in studying herpetology, working under the Herpetological Foundation of Sri Lanka. He's an avid nature photographer and was shortlisted at the 2020 BBC Young Wildlife Photographer of the Year competition. He's also a sportsman and currently he's a vice captain of the Ananda College rowing crew and is a national level oarsman. Well, Kalendra is also a TV presenter at Sirasa TV. So Kalendra, welcome to this important panel discussion on loss of biodiversity. The opportunity is yours now to talk about loss of biodiversity.
Everyone, and hello to everyone who's listening around the world. I'll be talking about biodiversity of Sri Lanka. What is biodiversity? The biodiversity is the variability among living organisms from all sources, including inter alia, terrestrial, marine, and other aquatic ecosystems and their ecological complexes of which they are part. This includes diversity within species, between species, and of ecosystems. Then biodiversity is the gene, species, and ecosystem. So these are some of the main ecosystems in Sri Lanka, starting from sand dunes to salt marshes, mountain forest, rainforest, and etc. So Sri Lanka is a very small island in the Indian Ocean, and because Sri Lanka is such a small island, there's a vast distribution of biodiversity from the central highlands of Sri Lanka to the coastal area. And you would be able to see the clouded forest on the central highlands and the beautiful coral reefs in Sri Lanka. And moving on. So Sri Lankan terrestrial ecosystem diversity. Natural forest ecosystems, starting from lowland wet evergreen forest, lowland mountain forest, dry mixed evergreen, thorny shrubs, and many more. And when we're talking about grassland ecosystems, we have wet pathanas, dry pathanas, savannas, and many more. Okay, so this is the main thing when we're talking about the diversity in Sri Lanka, because these waterways give us the water that we drink, and without water, we all know we can't live. So starting from the marine side, coral reefs, and seagrass beds, salt marshes, and mangroves, and inland aquatic. From when I think about the inland aquatic ecosystems, we have freshwater marshes, rivers and streams, riverine forest, and reservoirs. So, and now Sri Lanka is facing a big threat. Actually, the salt marshes in Sri Lanka is facing a big threat because the government in Sri Lanka, the present government in Sri Lanka has been destroying our salt marshes and using it to cultivate some shrimp and some marine creatures. So the main threat that I see on this is there are some native snakes that are found in salt marshes and many more animals, especially mangroves are recorded in salt marshes and that area, especially the banded racer, very rare snake in Sri Lanka. Actually, the one of the rarest snakes that is recorded in Sri Lanka is endemic to the salt marshes, and it's mostly recorded around salt marshes. But because of this destruction, these snakes are being very, very rare, and now because of that, the homes of these snakes have been destroyed, especially the Mana area. These snakes are mainly recorded in the Mana area, but however, now that ecosystem has been destroyed the very moment that we speak right now. So the biogeographical separation. Now, all these three frogs are endemic to Sri Lanka and are recorded in a very small area in the central hills of Sri Lanka. So when we think about these frogs, all these three frogs are in the same genus, but they have different species names. So Pseudopilotus, Dilma, and so on. So if you see these two frogs, the green frogs are very similar in shape, size, as well as the body texture. And because of the genetic separation, we were able to identify the differences between these frogs and name them differently to their genus and their species. The value of biodiversity. For production of food, agriculture, wild and domestic crops, fishery, the variety of fish species are exploited for human use. For example, Sri Lanka is island, so Sri Lanka is covered by the sea. We have a very vast uh, coastal area and with a big fish diversity. So that's the main protein that we use in Sri Lanka. And for medicinal health and traditional medicines and etc. Why conserve biodiversity? To maintain the ecological process and life support systems, to preserve genetic diversity, and to ensure sustainable utilization of species and ecosystems. The causes for biodiversity loss. So this is a big topic in the future world, actually habitat loss and fragmentation. So I'll be talking about this because the moment we speak, almost close to 300 gazetted wildlife reserves, forests are being destroyed in Sri Lanka at this very moment. So a lot of endemic native animals are being vanished because of this. Now, as I can remember, almost close to 30 frogs have been vanished in Sri Lanka, has been gone, no records. So there are no scientific records of these frogs in Sri Lanka because of habitat loss and climate changes and stuff like that. So introduced species. For example, America is facing a big threat with the bullseye snakehead, and that's an introduced species because of the pet trade, the legal and the illegal pet trade. Because of this introduced species, the native and the endemic species in that country or in that island are being threatened because these invasive species have a very fast reproduction rate and will eat almost everything. For example, bullseye snakehead has been eating crocodiles, baby turtles, even snakes, and sometimes birds, and very small mammals. So that's a huge problem. Now now Florida, mainly Florida, is facing. And when I'm talking about Sri Lanka, we have the common pleco, or in we call it the tank cleaner. He's a very armored catfish, and it's one of the world's most invasive fish species that is ever recorded, and with having a very fast reproduction rate, and will live anywhere, and can live without water for 2-3 days. So there's no problem in that aspect. Because of that, it's very hard to kill these or stop their reproduction. Because of that, these animals have been a huge threat in Sri Lanka. And the pollution of soil, water, and air. Yeah. So what is conservation? Management of the human use of the biosphere so that it may yield the greatest sustainable benefit to the present generation, while maintaining its potential to meet the needs and aspirations of the future generation as well. So the elements of biodiversity conservation: save, study, and use. So this is a cycle that continues. You must save, then study, and use. So this cycle continues. And Sri Lanka has a biodiversity hotspot. Sri Lanka is called the Western Ghats and Sri Lankan biodiversity hotspot. And if you can see, the whole Sri Lanka is known as a biodiversity hotspot. Sri Lanka is ranked the 8th most hottest hotspot in the world. And there are Madagascar, Philippines, and Brazil, forests, Caribbean, Burma, and Western Ghats of Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka has almost close to 2,300 endemic plants and a lot of endemic vertebrates, amphibians, reptiles, as well as fish. So since I've always been fascinated by reptiles and amphibians, I wanted to add this slide to this presentation since everyone would see this. Actually, this was named one of the rarest frogs in the whole world. It was rediscovered by Mr. L.J. Wickramasinghe, Mr. L.J. Wickramasinghe and his team back in 2013. So this frog was known extinct for almost close to 108 years. But however, in the Adams Peak of Sri Lanka, they recorded 6 specimens and is called the rarest frog on planet Earth. Was called the rarest frog on planet Earth. And so this is a close-up of this frog. And since frogs are highly sensitive animals, now you may think why I call these animals very sensitive. The main reason for that is frogs breathe using their skin. Frogs is a method of breathing by using their skin. And because of global climatic changes as well as global warming, the air has become warm. So because of that, the water vapor in the air has dropped, and frogs must always have a moist skin on them, or else they would die of dehydration and they wouldn't be able to breathe. So because of that, that's one of the main reasons the extinction of frogs are there in the world. That's one of the main reasons. And frogs have a special ability to camouflage to their surrounding, as well as some fish, even snakes, and so on. So when you're talking about this frog, this is a toad. This was called back from the dead. It was also recorded by Mr. L.J. Wickramasinghe and his team in 2012. So this is the world's rarest toad ever known to science. So this was also recorded from Sri Lanka, and yeah. So reasons for biodiversity loss. The number of human-related factors have been responsible for the decline of native fauna and flora, and these could be grouped under the 3 major categories: habitat loss, fragmentations, degradations, overexploitation, invasive alien species, climate changes, and natural disasters. So habitat loss. Because of humans, now humans think that they came first, so they think that they earned Earth. But animals have been here. Actually, marine animals have been here for millions and millions of years. But a human that has been evolved in a very short time is thinking that the world is theirs. So we've been destructing the world now. When we're talking about the world, now the world is developing. But as I know, development is the thing that we could develop our environment and our surrounding together with our human resources. But now the world is doing it the other way. We have destroyed a lot of environments, ecosystem that animals live. For example, the Knuckles range. The Knuckles range is being cut the right moment we talk. There are almost close to a lot of amphibians that are endemic to Sri Lanka recorded in Knuckles. Further researches will be conducted on Knuckles. There would be a new, now recently they discovered Aspidura ravanai, Aspidura gunasekarai from the Knuckles range. And there will be more frogs, snakes, as well as skinks, lizards from the Knuckles range, and so on. So thank you for listening, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to express my ideas on conservation and biodiversity of Sri Lanka. And if frogs go extinct, you'll notice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Khalendra, for that very important presentation on biodiversity loss. I want to appreciate you taking that initiative as a future leader to discuss and voice your concerns. So good luck with your future engagements in Sri Lanka, and good luck with your studies as well. So let's move on to our next speaker from Canada. Okay, Akash Pereira from Canada is going to make a presentation on water pollution. Interesting topic. Akash is 17 years old and attends St. Joseph's Catholic High School in Barrie, Ontario, Canada. He's very interested in neuroscience and the electric guitar. We have a musician in the house today. He also loves playing ice hockey and loves to read, and that is his pastime. So, Akash, we are all ears to listen to your presentation on water pollution.
Thank you. Okay, so you can see the presentation, correct?
Yes, we can see your presentation.
Okay, so I did my presentation on water pollution. The environment is in a dire state of affairs, all thanks to humans. Whether it's through overhunting, deforestation, or pollution, we have exploited nature's resources past their breaking point. While we can't undo the damage we've caused, we can try and work together towards a healthier and cleaner Earth. Some of the most pressing problems include climate change, water pollution, air pollution, and plastic pollution. Our use of fossil fuels contributes to air pollution, as well as climate change. Plastic pollution has become a major hazard for wildlife, especially those that live in the ocean, where 8 million tons of plastic ends up each year. These issues have become very serious, and as a society, we need to work together to help and fix them before it becomes too late. There are countless ways that we can lower our carbon footprint and lower our impact on the environment. We can reduce plastic pollution by reducing our consumption of plastic and properly disposing of plastic products. Carbon emissions can be reduced by biking and walking instead of traveling in a car. And we can assist the Earth's recovery from deforestation by planting trees. Water pollution is a portentous issue affecting humans and animals alike. We are constantly endangering ourselves simply by polluting our water supplies. Water is one of the most preeminent factors supporting life. Without an adequate source of clean water, we won't be able to continue surviving. It is our responsibility as a society that we scrupulously plan the usage of our water to ensure that we have a future on this earth. Water pollution can occur naturally through events such as volcanic eruptions. Various toxic gases are released by the eruptions and then are absorbed by the water bodies nearby. However, natural water pollution isn't nearly frequent or severe enough to really be a threat. We are to blame for endangering our water supplies. One of the main types of water pollution caused by humans is groundwater pollution. Groundwater is formed when water seeps through the Earth's crust. It pools in areas under the Earth's crust, forming aquifers. We can then drill for these aquifers and extract clean drinking water. However, due to improper disposal of chemicals and use of pesticides and fertilizer, groundwater is becoming more and more polluted. This is deleterious to our groundwater supplies, as it can take hundreds of years to clean. Without a sustainable source of groundwater, cities and rural towns will have difficulty accessing clean drinking water. Worse still, groundwater can contaminate other sources, such as lakes, rivers, and oceans. Here you can see the area under the crust where the water pools is called the aquifer. And then we use wells to extract the water, and it's a prime source for drinking water, especially for developed cities and countries. However, with water pollution, it's lowering, and we won't be able to get clean drinking water if groundwater supplies are completely polluted. We must also be wary of the consequences that come with using pesticides, as they pollute lakes, rivers, and oceans also. In a process known as eutrophication, pesticides increase the richness of chemicals in water. This step sets the stage for algae blooms. Algae blooms are when algae rapidly proliferate in a body of water. The abundance of algae lowers the quantities of oxygen within the water itself. This causes other plants and fish to die off. Algae blooms can last for months on end and are very difficult to control once they have begun. To avoid such calamities, we must be cautious in our use of pesticides and opt for more natural methods. For example, some farmers use natural predators to control the spread of pests around crops. As you can see here, this is a picture of the algae bloom in Florida, and you can see to the extent that it has spread. And the algae uses up, during the process of photosynthesis, it uses up the free oxygen available in the water. And because of how fast it spreads, it lowers the amount of oxygen that other animals and plants have available, and then they begin to die off. And this is detrimental to the ecosystem in the area. Another major way we humans pollute our water supplies is through the accumulation of garbage in the water itself. Dumping garbage obviously affects the cleanliness of the water, but it can also affect what the animals in the area eat. And through the process of bioaccumulation, if we end up consuming these animals, we end up consuming the trash that has been dumped. It is important that countries enforce regulations on dumping trash. It is just as important that we, as citizens, take care to correctly dispose of our garbage and recycle as much as possible to alleviate this issue of water pollution. After all, we are only hurting ourselves and others. Industrial waste is another common way of severely polluting bodies of water. Textile manufacturers specifically produce large quantities of wastewater and are a major contributor to pollution. According to regulations, these companies must perform rigorous water treatment before dumping any wastewater. However, due to poor inspection by the companies, the water may not be treated correctly, and factories unfortunately dump gallons upon gallons of harmful wastewater into the surrounding ecosystem. Foods grown in surrounding areas absorb these chemicals, which are then consumed by humans. As a result, human health in the area deteriorates due to the influx of toxic chemicals. This vicious chain, known as bioaccumulation, has detrimental effects on the ecosystem and human health. This is something that can be prevented if factories took better care in treating wastewater. As you can see, the discoloration in these pictures is due to the various chemicals and dyes that textile manufacturers use during the process of making textiles. But they dump the wastewater without correctly treating it, leading to severe pollution in the surrounding areas. It's really sad because these are things that we can prevent if textile manufacturers and other companies that also produce wastewater took better care in treating their water before they dump it into the surrounding areas. As humans, it is important that we become aware of the issue plaguing, if not many, if not all nations of the world. However, awareness is just a step in the right direction. We must also act together to fix this issue before it becomes too late. As a society, we must take better care of our water sources by disposing of toxic waste properly, recycling, using pesticides carefully, and monitoring the actions of large factories. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Akash. Well, water pollution is a topic that we all need to pay more attention to. And I'm grateful for you picking that topic to create awareness. As you said, that it is going to be a collaborative effort globally to mitigate water pollution. So thank you so much. And we wish you all the very best with your future engagements. So moving on to our next speaker from United Kingdom, we want to welcome Nihara Dumbukkola from UK. Nihara will make a presentation on plastic pollution. She lives in London and is 11 years old, and she attends Woodbridge High School in South Woodford. She is part of a cricket club. She's also a Girl Guide and traveled to different places, and most especially for her, there is a visit that she went and to a place where they taught them how to make wooden flutes and metal bracelets. and lots of other things out of nature, which she says is much better than going to a shop and buying plastic clothes, as it could destroy the environment. So Nihara, welcome. We are opening this panel now to talk about plastic pollution with you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. It says you have started screen sharing. Okay, I think it's coming up. Let's give it a minute.
Okay. Has it started?
It is still loading, Nihara. Oh, now we see your PowerPoint. Okay. You're good to start.
Hello, my name is Nihara and I will be talking about plastic pollutions. So how does plastic pollute the environment? Plastic sticks around in the environment for a very long time, threatening wildlife and spreading toxins. Plastic also contributes to global warming. Almost all plastics are made from chemicals that come from the production of planet-warming fuels, gas, oil, and even coal. So what pollution does plastic cause? Plastic causes the incinerations of plastic materials. Researchers estimate that over 40% of the world's garbage is burned. And burning plastic and other waste releases dangerous substances such as heavy metals, persistent organic pollutants, and other toxic chemicals into the air, and persist in ash waste residues. So what are effects of plastic pollution? Marine species ingest or are entangled by plastic debris, which causes severe injuries and deaths. Plastic pollution threatens food safety and quality, human health, coastal tourism, and contributes to climate change. So what could happen if we don't fix plastic pollution? It could lead to a lack of predation and overgrowth of one species. It can also lead to further extinctions as the prey species dies out and predators run out of food. If this is the case, fishing for food will never be the same again, and the fish may no longer be there. How do animals die from plastic pollution? The problem: over 1 million marine animals, including mammals, fish, sharks, turtles, and birds, are killed each year due to plastic debris in the ocean. Currently, it is estimated that there are 100 million tons of plastic in oceans around the world. How much plastic is in the ocean? There is now 5.25 trillion macro and micro pieces of plastic in our ocean, and 46,000 pieces in every square mile of ocean, weighing up to 269,000 tons. Every day, around 8 million pieces of plastic makes their way into our oceans. Stop plastic pollution. People shouldn't be polluting plastic, as it could damage the earth and where we live. Animals can even go extinct because of this. Here are some things we can do to stop plastic polluting. Number 1, use reusable water bottles and recycle them so things can be used again. Number 2, don't litter. And number 3, avoid plastic packaging. Thank you for listening to my presentation. And please remember, if you see litter anywhere, pick it up and put it in the bin. Even that gesture can make a huge difference and is a great start for you to saving the planet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nehara, for that excellent presentation on plastic pollution. So we are now moving to another speaker in Sri Lanka, Theruni Abbe Singha. So Theruni will make a presentation on forest ecosystem. She's a student at Bishop's College, Colombo, and she's in grade 7. Apart from her interest in protecting nature, she's interested in outer space and Greek and Roman mythology. An avid reader, she's a strong advocate of digital books because hard copies are made from trees. She plays badminton and chess when she runs out of things to read. She quotes Treebeard in The Lord of the Rings. Nobody cares for the woods anymore, and says she wants to do her best to prove him wrong. So forest ecosystem, and she is from Sri Lanka. So Theruni, the floor is yours to talk about forest and ecosystem.
Evening. I would like to begin by quoting this passage from The Lord of the Rings. Frodo laid his hand upon the tree. Never before had he been so suddenly and so keenly aware of the feel and texture of a tree's skin and of the life within it. He felt a delight in wood and the touch of it. Neither as forester nor as carpenter, it was the delight of the living tree itself. Tolkien portrays nature as something that is alive, something that should be loved and cared about. But it is sad to see that no one seems to care for the woods anymore. We have begun to destroy the forests around us and as a result faced a lot of problems. Water pollution, air pollution, too much heat and too much snow. But all these disasters we talk about are related only to our survival. We are only concerned about the environment to save ourselves. We have all forgotten something important. We have forgotten that nature is alive. Like how Frodo loved to delight in the living tree itself, we must remember trees are living beings just like us. So, there is one important thing we must always remember. We must remember that we should be saving the environment not only for ourselves because we want to live, because our future generations must live, but for the sake of every living being on this planet. This means the smallest butterfly, the largest mammal, and even unseen bacteria. We must stop destroying trees not only for ourselves, but because other living beings need trees, because trees themselves are living beings. Each tree felled is just as important as the loss of a human life, or perhaps even more important. If the forests of the world were to fall, the world would come crashing down. This is why we must now dive into the forest ecosystem to see how many lives depend on a forest for existence. A lot of living beings on Earth depend on a forest for food, shelter, water, filtering carbon dioxide from the air and producing oxygen. Besides providing habitats for animals and livelihoods for humans, forests also offer watershed protection, prevent soil erosion, and mitigate climate change. Forests are home to 80% of the world's terrestrial biodiversity. What is amazing is that every living being in a forest has a role to play as a producer, a consumer, or a decomposer. Green plants are producers. They make their own food through a process called photosynthesis. Animals, including humans, are consumers. They eat or consume plants and other animals. bacteria, and other living organisms that break down the waste material and dead tissue of animals are decomposers. They return nutrients to the soil where new plants grow. The way all these animals provide food for each other is called a food chain. If you remember, in The Lion King, Simba's new friends, Pumbaa and Timon, teach him about the circle of life. Zebras eat grass, lions eat zebras, then lions die and fertilize the soil for the grass to grow. This is how nature planned things until we started to change everything. Like the Dark Lord Sauron in The Lord of the Rings, there is an evil force that threatens the forest ecosystem. It is called climate change. A changing climate may worsen many of the threats to forests, such as pest outbreaks, fires, and drought. Climate change directly and indirectly affects the growth and productivity of forests through changes in temperature, rainfall, weather, and other factors. A very large amount of carbon dioxide will also have an effect on plant growth. These changes affect forest ecosystems, and when the forest ecosystems get destroyed completely, it will be the end of Earth as we know it. What can we do to change all this? First, we must identify the enemy. Carbon dioxide is the climate's worst enemy. It's released when oil, coal, and other fossil fuels are burned for energy, the energy we use to power homes, cars, and phones. By using less of it, we can curb our own contribution to climate change. We can make a difference by using cloth bags when we go shopping, using energy-efficient bulbs like LEDs and CFLs, and planting trees whenever possible. And if adults that we know are considering cutting down trees, we should try to prevent them from doing this by explaining the importance of trees to all life on Earth. Finally, I would like to say that sadly, the world would be a much happier and healthier planet if humans didn't exist. If all the humans disappeared overnight, the world and all the animals living in it would be perfectly fine. If we had never evolved from monkeys, if we had stayed apes, the world would not be burdened with any of its problems. But since we did evolve from some strange twist of fate, we should really try to save our planet. If we don't, the way things have been going recently, we should consider it lucky if we live to see 2050. If we continue to destroy Mother Nature, all living beings, including trees and other organisms that we nearly always classify as non-living beings, despite the fact that they are alive, have a 0% chance of survival. If we try to change our ways and start caring about things that grow, then we might have a small chance of survival. Let's do our best to do the latter, as I think a slight chance of survival is a whole lot better than no chance of survival. Let me end with another quote from The Lord of the Rings. Treebeard says, "I am not on anybody's side because nobody is on my side. Nature is standing alone and needs our help to survive. Let's all be on Treebeard's side. Let us all stand strong and fight the enemies of nature." Thank you.
Thank you, Theruni, for picking a topic of significant importance. Forest ecosystem, we wish you all the very best with your engagements. So let's move on to our next panelist from UK, Farah Shamin. Farah is going to touch on another very important topic, global warming and climate change. And she's 12 years old and is in year 7 at Woodford County Grammar School. Farah plays cricket for the club Bancroft Lions and also participates in hardball matches, gymnastics, and swimming. She loves climbing trees, nature, and the environment. And when she grows up, she wants to be a vet so she can help animals. She says she hates seeing the state of the world that we live in and wants to see it change it to a cleaner, healthier place. So she's going to focus today on global warming and climate change. Farah, we welcome you to our panel. So take it away.
Thank you. Climate change and global warming. What is climate change? Climate change is when the Earth's average conditions, such as temperature changes, sea levels rise, rainfall changes, happen over a long period of time. So, how and why does it happen? Climate change has occurred multiple times, but naturally. For example, when volcanoes erupt, or when there are changes in the sun's energy, or when there are changes in the Earth's orbit. But can it occur unnaturally? The greenhouse effect. Here, some radiation is absorbed by Earth's surface and warms it. Some solar radiation is reflected by Earth in the atmosphere. Some of the infrared radiation passes through the atmosphere, but some is absorbed by greenhouse gases and re-emitted in all directions. This is to warm the Earth's surface in the lower atmosphere. And here, infrared radiation is emitted by Earth's surface. But what this means is that when the sun's rays go through the atmosphere and hit Earth, some of them get reflected back into space and some remain and warm Earth like a blanket. Gases like carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide help trap heat to warm Earth. However, when produced excessively, they cause global warming or climate change. How are these gases caused by us? Carbon dioxide is added to the atmosphere by human activities. When hydrocarbon fuels, i.e. wood, coal, natural gas, gasoline, and oil are burned, carbon dioxide is released. During combustion or burning, carbon from fossil fuels combine with oxygen in the air to form carbon dioxide and water vapor. Methane is emitted during the production and transport of coal, natural gas, and oil. Methane emissions also result from livestock and other agricultural practices and by the decay of organic waste in municipal solid waste landfills. Nitrous oxide is generated as a byproduct during the production of chemicals such as nitric acid, which is used to make synthetic commercial fertilizer, and in the production of adipic acid, which is used to make fibers like nylon and other synthetic products. In 2013, it was recorded that deforestation contributes to around 10% of carbon emissions. Just imagine what it could be now in 2021. Burning coal, oil, and natural gas to generate electricity is the largest source of global emissions. In 2018, greenhouse gas emissions from the agriculture or farming economic sector accounted for 9.9% of greenhouse gas emissions. Greenhouse gas emissions from agriculture have increased by 10.1% since 1990. Animals affected by global warming and climate change. The Arctic is warming about twice as fast as the global average, causing the ice that polar bears depend on to melt away. Loss of sea ice also threatens the bear's main prey, seals, which need the ice to raise their young. Firstly, climate change enables forests to move higher elevation to occupy grasslands, the main habitats of snow leopards. Therefore, snow leopard habitat shrinks and suffers greater fragmentation. Giant pandas, they have been allowed to persist only at elevations higher than land that can be used for productive agriculture. However, as the agricultural value of land in current panda habitat increases under a changing climate, activities like growing crops and grazing livestock may further encroach on their habitat. Bengal tigers. The population of Bangladesh's Sundarbans region could be wiped out with climate change. Scientists predict that the habitats which Bengal tigers rely could be destroyed by 2070 from our warming climate. Monarch butterflies. They face a decline in their overwinter habitat and the effects of an increasing frequency of extreme weather events such as drought and severe storms, and extremes in hot and cold temperatures. Here is a video from a previous Earth Day. Nia, thank you. Thank you for listening, and please remember that we can stop global warming, even by doing little things, such as only putting what we need to eat on our plate. This way, the rest doesn't get taken to landfills after we put it in the bin, and there is some for tomorrow.
Thank you, Farah. Can you please stop sharing so we can go back to the gallery view again? Thank you. So I want to thank you for touching on another very important topic today, global warming and climate change. So good luck with your studies and future engagements. So we have the last speaker for today's presentations, and last but not least, I have a very special speaker from Sri Lanka. She is the youngest speaker of the panel today. Alosha Samadarachi from Sri Lanka is going to talk about oceans and marine life. She is a 9-year-old marine biologist and is in grade 5 at Hillwood College, Kandy, Sri Lanka. Alosha is a member of the Young Marine Biologist UK. She is also an ambassador, Marine Conservation Network, Santa Barbara, United States, and a Global Youth Shark Ambassador, El Porto Shark, Manhattan Beach in Los Angeles. So Alosha, welcome to the panel, and we are waiting to hear your presentation today. So take it away.
Hi, I'm Alosha. Today I'm going to talk about oceans and marine life, and I'm going to talk a bit about rainforests too. So we are on the verge of the 6th mass extinction caused by climate change. Climate change is due to greenhouse gas emissions and many other different reasons. But we have a solution that is right in front of our eyes. There is a machine that sucks carbon dioxide right out of the air and converts it into the air we breathe. That machine is trees. Trees are the most important thing we need to stop climate change. It is the key for the lock. So there are 2 main rainforests in my country, the Sinharaja rainforest and the Knuckles rainforest. Both and many other different types of rainforests like the Amazon contain a high amount of biodiversity and are shrinking with it. So people cut down trees every day, every hour, and every minute. So this loses a large amount of oxygen we breathe, a main food supply, and the habitat for a variety of species. So if people keep cutting down trees, all that would be left is a barren wasteland full of nothing but ash and stone. We would have to suffer with no food, no water, no shelter or shade. Mother Nature would punish us for all our misdeeds by sending many natural disasters like the drought. Save not only for us, but for our future. Save the rainforest. Save the trees. Now I'm going to talk about the mystery of the ocean. So what is the ocean? The ocean is the largest body of water on the planet, covering 97% of the Earth's surface. And it contains the highest amount of biodiversity than any habitat on the planet. So the ocean looks like a blue wasteland from above. But when you dive deep, you see the true wonders of it. So this is where the ocean zones come in. So there are 3 main ocean zones: the sunlight zone, twilight zone, and the midnight zone. You could take the abyssal plains and the trenches too. So let's start with the sunlight zone. The sunlight zone It's a very high amount of sunlight which allows plants to grow, from tiny phytoplankton to giant tailed forest and mangroves. So there is plants like seagrass, algae, phytoplankton, giant kelp, seaweed, and many other different plants growing in this zone. So phytoplankton are microscopic plants that provides us with 50% of the oxygen we breathe. So over here, you could find the most amazing thing in the ocean, coral reef. Coral reefs. Coral may look like a bunch of old rocks, but are actually animals called polyps. So the reef is made out of the skeleton of these animals that are made out of calcium carbonate, which forms into different structures and then grows on another polyp and making a big reef. It takes over 100 years to make one single reef. So it contains half the biodiversity of the ocean. So you can find animals like sea turtles, dugongs, echinoderms, crustaceans, marine mammals, and manta rays, and many other different animals. And you can find sharks. Sharks are not the murderous man-killers in myths. Sharks are actually peaceful and gentle creatures. So how do they find their food? I'm telling this because I'm a lot of interest in sharks. Well, by using electroreception. So it has organs in its nose called ampullae of Lorenzini, which can detect low electrical impulses from fish miles away. So you've known the hammerhead, that weird shark with the hammer-like head. So why does it have that hammer-like head? Well, to make way for ampullae of Lorenzini. So that's how it could find low electrical impulses from flounders and stingrays under the sand. So let's dive into the twilight zone. The twilight zone has a less amount of sunlight and doesn't allow much plants to grow. So this is the place where the giant kelp anchors itself, with not roots, but root-like structures. Animals, there are shark species like great whites. And now let's dive into the deep. The midnight zone. The midnight zone doesn't have even a bit of light except for the light created by animals, bioluminescence or GFP, which was first discovered in a jellyfish called Aquaria victoria. GFP is blue light absorbed and then transferred into green light and many different other colors. So you could find bioluminescence in animals like dragonfish, anglerfish, flashlight fish, hatchet fish, siphonophores, and jellyfish. Now, so anglerfish don't make their own light, but it stores bioluminescent bacteria and its growth on its head, and then lures in small fish that think that it's gonna have a yummy meal. But then the anglerfish gets an even better meal. But the fish have a defense mechanism. When it feels threatened or attacked by a predator, it releases a glue-like mucus that confuses the predator, and then it scares it off, and then it swims away. So you could find a different bizarre thing here. Deep sea coral reefs. Deep sea coral reefs are really rare and are mostly found in Arctic seas. So you could find animals like sea sponges, echinoderms like brills, basket stars, and sea urchins. And you could find rare species of sharks like goblin sharks, frilled sharks, six-gill sharks, seven-gill sharks, blunt-nosed sharks, and Greenland sharks, which live in the Arctic. So this is the place where the interesting battle of the sperm whale and giant squid began. Now, how does the sperm whale go into that pressure and seize? Well, it doesn't have any problem with that. Well, the sperm whale slows its heart rate while it's diving, making a good advantage. So, and there's an oily-like substance in its head called spermaceti. So that's how the sperm whale got its name. When the sperm whale is on the surface, the spermaceti is like an oil. And then when it goes to the bottom, the spermaceti turns into solid rock. So how does it see down here? So eyes are no use here. So it has a different mechanism. Echolocation. Echolocation is the same thing that bats use to find insects. So when the sound waves bounce onto a squid, and then it bounces back onto the whale's lower jaw that travels to its ears and then to its brain, signaling it that it must attack before the squid gets away. Now let's dive into the abyssal plains. So in the abyssal plains, you can find many bizarre structures like hydrothermal vents or black smokers, mud volcanoes, brine pools and brine rivers, and lakes of sulfur acid. So it's a completely different ecosystem here. So you've heard of photosynthesis, right? Photosynthesis, energy created by light. But there's a different thing here. Chemosynthesis. Chemosynthesis is energy created by chemical reaction and heat. So a bacteria called cyanobacteria or chemosynthetic bacteria absorb this heat and chemicals which produces sugar or energy. So many animals eat the cyanobacteria like yeti crabs, iron-footed snails, and blind shrimp. And many animals form a symbiotic relationship with the bacteria. So giant tube worms store the bacteria inside their body, which provides the bacteria a safe shelter, and the bacteria provides food. So you could find bioluminescent animals like jellyfish here. Jellyfish and siphonophores, iron-footed snails, yeti crabs, blind shrimp, clams, mussels, shellfish, and many other animals. So let's dive into the trenches. The trenches can get a lot tight, and it is called pressure. So a human skull would be crushed in 5 minutes. So you can't find much animals here, but you could find sea cucumbers, giant isopods, jellyfish, and you could find a different thing floating elegantly along the seafloor, plastic bags. In 2018, scientists have discovered that crustaceans in the Mariana Trench have consumed plastic. So it's really hard to believe that a big and beautiful ocean can be harmed. Well, it can. By ocean pollution. So there are many ways of ocean pollution. Dumping, sewage, oil spills, maritime transportation, plastic pollution, and overfishing. So let's start with plastic pollution. So we use plastic in everyday lives. And then after we use the plastic, we burn, we dump it to be recycled, but it doesn't be recycled. It goes straight into the ocean. And this harms the ecosystem a lot. And animals like sea turtles and seabirds mistake plastic for food. So let's take a sea turtle. So a sea turtle can identify a shopping bag as a delicious jellyfish and then swallows it whole. And let's take a pelican. When the pelican is flying high above the ocean, and then it spots a giant patch of plastic and then dives headfirst and scoops up a whole mouthful of plastic and then swallows it whole like the sea turtle. And so how does the plastic gather in giant patches? Well, it gathers in giant patches from plastic gyres. So the gyres bring the plastic to an exact spot in the West Pacific Ocean, which is the largest plastic patch in the ocean in the world and is becoming larger every day. So the plastic gyres or ocean currents bring the plastic from all over the world to that exact spot. So now, if farmers use too much fertilizer, all that fertilizer would be washed away in the rains and go through drains and rivers straight to the ocean, which attracts algal blooms or red tides. So you've may heard or seen red tides. Well, it's the thing that destroys everything in its path, leaving nothing. So how does this affect the ocean? Well, instead of releasing oxygen, it absorbs all the oxygen and then releases carbon dioxide. And then this leaves a dedicated zone called the dead zone. So the dead zone it doesn't have much fish. When you dive deeper, all you can find is plastic at the bottom. So now maritime transportation. So how does this affect? Well, many animals like whales use sonar to communicate, and submarine sonar jams all that communications and harms tissues and cells in the process. Now, overfishing. So what is actually overfishing? Overfishing is the unwanted amount of fish being caught in fishing nets by fishermen. So these animals like sea turtles and echinoderms, crustaceans, but crustaceans are actually wanted, and marine mammals like whales and sharks, all are pushed back into the ocean off the boat as bycatch. So the top predators of the ocean are being affected. Sharks. As I told you before, they are not the murderous man-killers, and they are actually peaceful creatures. So how do they become affected? Well, they become affected by cutting off their fins. So the hammerhead shark. Sharks are hardly protected, while least concerned species are very strictly protected. So after the fisherman cut the fins right out of the shark, it throws the shark back into the ocean, and the shark does not survive in the process. So how can the shark live without fins for stabilization? So how do we protect the ocean and stop plastic pollution? Because plastic is the most common element found in the oceans today. By 3 simple steps: reduce, reuse, and recycle. So you can do a very small thing to help a very big ecosystem, like Meatless Mondays. So you can use a reusable cotton bag and a reusable bottle that would last you a lifetime. So we can give advice to people, family, friends, and members. So if grown-ups don't take any action, we can. Children have all the power we can to save the world. We can change the world. We can make a difference. So I'm Alosha from Sri Lanka. Thank you from people around the world.
Thank you so much, Alosha. Thank you so much for that great presentation. I learned a lot about ocean and marine life, and especially about sharks today. So we hope to see you sometime in California, maybe in near future, when you work as a youth ambassador with these different organizations in California. So that concludes our panel discussion today on Voices of Young to Save the Planet. It was a wonderful time together with these activists, the young speakers from 4 countries in the world. So I am very, very happy that you guys collaborated in this panel forum discussing very important topics today. I want to thank all the participants, Penny Pereira, Dilana Wickramasinghe from USA, Farah Shamim, Nihara Dumbukkala from UK, Mihiri Kamis, Akash Pereira from Canada, and Akira Alagiawanna, Khalendra Ranwala, Perunia Besinghe, and Alusha Samarachi from Sri Lanka. Thank you very much for your participation in this panel, and we wish you all the very best with your future endeavors. And also for our audience, thank you very much for joining from all corners of the world. And also, I want to let you know that on April 22nd, that is the Earth Day, we will be telecasting this panel discussion again. So thank you.
I want the youth of today to know that I have done everything that I can to ensure on the 100th anniversary of Earth Day, we are celebrating a brighter future. We're at a critical moment in history. We have an opportunity to address the greatest environmental challenge of our time.
Are we able? Yes. Are we willing? That's the unanswered question.